Afternoon. Super excited to be here and looking forward to talking to you guys about cognitive language services for the next 1 hour. Interestingly, I do have the graveyard shift. So for folks that don't know that, that's the one that starts at 1, and especially because we are virtual, can go either way. So I'm going to keep it interactive, keep it funny, so that we're all awake and uh, attentive because I have some excellent material prepared for you guys. With that said, if I was in a room with you at this point, I would have all of us stand, stretch, raise our hands, and just laugh it out before going into cognitive language services. Um, I also want to just say thanks to the amazing presentation by Veronica because it sets the stage completely and perfectly with the language services. A lot of things that Veronica touched upon either will become clearer or more confusing, depending on how deep we go today. But I'm hoping that for better or, this thing, for most part, it'll clear a lot of things, how um, the cognitive language services are spread out over the whole horizon and how we can best leverage them. One more thing I would like to just say before we go dive deeper into this presentation is that think about any service, any API that we talk about today as a building block. It's a Lego block. And we're going to combine Legos together and build something at the end, which is going to be beautiful. So with that said, I am going to go and let you guys know a little bit more about me. Tim gave a wonderful introduction, but this is me. Me and my daughters, been in Nova, Northern Virginia, Herndon, Reston area for almost 20 years. We love to go kayaking on the Potomac, especially Riverman Park, and just hike. We have such amazing trails here. So with that said, on the technical aspect, I started my career with SQL Server, DTS, Crystal Reports almost 20 years back, more on the customer side. Did a lot of internal consulting, worked on SAP engagements, a lot of data engineering, data analytics, before starting to drift more towards machine learning, which happened over the past 5 years with my stint at Cisco, Intel, AWS, and then now here at Microsoft. So super excited and thrilled to be here at Microsoft. I mean, some of the amazing things technology-wise are happening here that I'm eager to share. And I think this 1 hour is going to be interesting, though slightly short. I wish I had more time, but more than happy to stay behind and answer any questions in the chat. Feel free to interrupt me. I do tend to talk fast. Please interrupt me. No, I would not be offended at all. And I'll try to go as slow as possible. So the agenda, going to start with what are cognitive language services, kind of look at it from a high level slide. I did not have that. I just added it at the last minute when I saw the questions pouring in the chat. I think it'll give a good insight of where language, speech, and other services kind of fit in. And then do a deeper dive in text analytics, Lewis, language understanding, which Veronica was showing you guys how it's integrating with speech, QAMaker, translator, and yes, a couple of demos here and there to show you how easy it is to create stuff in Lewis and QAMaker. Any questions so far? Does this look good? Okay, I'm going to assume it looks good. Azure AI. Even though the central box is highlighted, which talks about the customizable AI models and cognitive services, I would highly request you guys to look at the whole bigger picture, where we've got on the top the scenario-specific AI services, which include bot service, cognitive search, form recognizer, and many others, immersive reader being a new one. And in between is the customizable AI models or cognitive services, which we've been touching upon today. Speech with Veronica, and I'll be doing a deeper dive in the language side. On the bottom, which is our platform, is Azure Machine Learning, and you guys looked at the auto ML piece of it a few hours back. So just wanted to show this slide quickly so that everybody sees where things kind of fall in or set in and what we are focusing on today. So Azure Bot Service, I know there were a couple of questions. It's built on Azure Bot Framework. Azure Search is the cloud app search service. Form Recognizer, it extracts key value pairs from forms. The window indexer used to extract in-depth metadata. So a lot of things happening here. And the reason why I'm mentioning these specific AI services is because I do want to reinstate, and I'll keep doing this throughout the hour, is rarely ever, or particular depending on your use case, you'll see a single service or an API working in silo. It will be working in conjunction with a cognitive search or a bot service or a form recognizer to get to those actionable insights that you are looking forward from your use case. So please keep that in mind. Lego blocks, these are all Lego blocks that we are going to be discussing today. And to highlight those cognitive services a little bit more, our vision consists of, we have like more than domain specific pre-trained models, and they are around 30 specific, if I have my number, probably not the latest number, across all of these 4 buckets. With vision, computer vision, custom vision, form recognizer falls under the vision specific side. Under speech, we do have the speaker recognition and speech that Veronica talked about. Under language, we've got the language understanding, which is Lewis, text analytics, text and document translation, and QAMaker. On the decision side, we have the anomaly detector, content moderator, metrics advisor, and personalizer. I'm going to be focusing on this 3rd bucket right here today, and we'll go even more deeper. Please note and look at the blue dots on the left side. That just makes them more customizable, more things that you can do on the fly, or you can also do based on your requirements and integrate them with other services. For example, Lewis was just integrated with speech. So coming to this language part, I had a wonderful trip in Seattle. I enjoyed the Space Needle and Pike Place Market. I love salmon. And when I click analyze, what happens? I get this analyze text, which includes languages. Okay, it's English, confidence of 100%. We're pretty confident it's English. Then we get some key phrases like space, needle, Seattle, Pike Place Market, wonderful trip. Sentiment based on, okay, is it positive, negative, neutral? We get 99% positive with the green. And I'll go a little bit more detail into each of these 4 categories. Linked entities. This is in preview right now. I had a wonderful trip in Seattle. It's kind of trying to find relationships and linkages between different words that are being said here or the different text. Another thing, it is, I do like to say that language is a close cousin of speech because it allows your apps to process natural language with pre-built scripts, evaluate sentiment, and learn how to recognize what users want. And with these bottom 5 APIs for immersive reader, language understanding, text analytics, translator, and QAMaker, that's what we are trying to achieve, is try to see how can these services help people and organizations to extract insights from text, which includes people of all abilities can read from using immersive reader. Marketing teams like social media feeds can be analyzed with sentiment and text analytics. E-commerce sellers reaching new markets through translation, or call centers that want to create seamless customer interactions for chatbots, and they want to use language understanding. And we did touch upon chatbots before, and I'll keep reiterating that, how chatbots would use language understanding, QAMaker, different APIs here to get to the end result that you want to. I come across a lot of conversations where chatbots are considered just, you use a bot service or a bot framework without any of these added intelligence, and you're looking for bot to make quality answers and be able to respond in a intelligent way. But these APIs make that bot more smarter, more intelligent, be able to find that intent, not just be a robot, but be able to find and give more context to the question or the answer that you're searching for. So let's dive deeper into text analytics. So what is text analytics? It's another API, and it provides advanced NLP, which is natural language processing over raw text. And it includes these four major functions: key phrase extraction, language detection, entity recognition and entity linking, and sentiment analysis. So why do we even need text analytics? I mean, most of us that have been working for some time with data know that data, even Frank was mentioning in the earlier session, it was structured. We're used to structured tabular data. But data for the past so many years, 4 or 5 years, or even more, has been slowly changing with big data being structured, semi-structured, and the need for analyzing text becomes even more and more prevalent. I've worked with use cases where customers or my customers have been working for days on analyzing manual text. Every day reports come in that need to be manually analyzed, or data needs to be extracted out of it or understood. Um, just to think about the amount of resources, time that can be saved when we start using machine learning with already pre-built custom models that are using Azure Text Analytics. It just reduces so much effort, as well as starts providing using machine learning for gathering even more insights that were previously taking weeks or days can now be done within hours. So the documents, logs, social media, surveys, all of that data can be converted into text, and we can either do key phrase extraction or language detection or sentiment analysis, or maybe sometimes even a combination depending on what our use case is. So just wanted to add this here, the language coverage part, that for right now, or at least a few months back when I first started creating this, the named entity coverage is more than 30 languages. Sentiment analysis is around more than 20 languages, and key phrase extraction is more than 25 languages. The language detection feature actually in text input for each document and returns language identifiers with a score. And I think Veronica was mentioning this, that it comes back with a certain score. So text analytics, when combined with speech, becomes even more powerful. So this capability is useful, when we are trying to collect arbitrary text where language is not known, or when we want to parse the results to determine which language is used. And the score value is between 0 and 1. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into sentiment analysis. So one of the first projects for machine learning that I started doing a few years back was actually with sentiment analysis. And sentiment analysis for Twitter feeds, and combining it with different services, like having a data storage. Your data is ingested, your data needs to store somewhere. Data needs to come because it's Twitter feeds, data needs to come on a regular basis. It needs to come like a stream. So using event hubs. And then once the data is here in a data lake, then trying to use the sentiment analysis API to find the output out of it, or understand what is the kind of sentiment that we are seeing on a particular Twitter feed by a certain person, for example. And then on top of it, layering it with the Power BI report to see or analyze the data that's coming, and to kind of not just see it real time, but also be able to generate some kind of analysis on top of it to see what are the trends we are seeing. So just using sentiment analysis with Twitter feeds, which is a very popular example that has been going around for a few years now. Um, you can see the power of just finding that emotion out of the text. Now, when we talk about this, a lot of times question comes about sarcasm. Um, for 2 years, a couple of years, like I'm telling you, my answer used to be, yeah, I wish it was not there yet, not there yet. But I feel happy to say that I like this. At least it's getting there. Slowly but surely, we will get there with a little bit of opinion mining. Um, so opinion mining, it's also known as aspect based. And I think there was a question in the chat about sarcasm as well. So um, anyway, so talking about opinion mining, um, it is aspect-based sentiment analysis in NLP. So what it does is it uses relationship opinions related to words. So such as the attributes of products or services in a text. So what it does, okay, I'm going to give another example here. So it locates targets like nouns and verbs in the text, and then an associated assessment with it, which is like which is an adjective basically. So for example, in the sentence, the restaurant had great food and a waiter was friendly has two targets. What are the two targets? I'm going to repeat this again. The restaurant had great food and our waiter was friendly. The two targets here are food and waiter. Because each target's relations contains a reference value with the associated objects here. I'm sure this is a little confusing, but okay, let's start it. Let's do another one. The room was great, but the staff was unfriendly. So what opinion mining would do is give you the target, opinion, and the sentiment. And the target would be room and staff. Opinion is great, unfriendly, and the sentiment would be positive and negative. So we, in those two sentences, or in that one sentence, we got a positive emotion or sentiment as well as a negative sentiment. So we are able to capture those both. Um, and that's why I say not really sarcasm, but getting there. Um, and I'll repeat it again. The room was great, but the staff was unfriendly. So opinion mining subject is room and staff. Opinion is great and unfriendly, and sentiment is positive and negative. And the only thing you need to do when you are doing this feature of sentiment analysis is turn an opinion mining flag as true in the code. And I'll show you and I'll share a lot documentation on where code snippets are on GitHub that you guys can use to go and play around and just test out with things and see how how sentiment analysis and opinion mining can work on a small paragraph that you're trying to test out with. So what are the use cases? Where does this fit in? It would fit in for aspects such as products or services like surveys, customer feedback, wherever, marketing efforts, improvements, even call center data. I got good service today, but yesterday was bad. Bad example, but I'm hoping you get the point. You're capturing both the positive and negative aspect of it. So any questions around this? Just wanted to talk more about this because this is still new. Okay. Let's go to key phrase extraction because I have this wonderful example that I want to talk to you guys and show you that includes both key phrase extraction as well as sentiment analysis. So key phrase extraction, and the reason why I have V3 in there is because this also shows you the kind of updates that we are getting currently. So before in version 2 with key phrases, we used to, like from this example, we would get updates, week, transaction, just the words out of it. With version 3, we're getting much more. With more custom refined trained models, we're able to get out short text as well as long text. So overall, what is the key phrase extraction? It evaluates unstructured text and returns a list of key phrases. That's what we are seeing here in this example as well. So when we give the example similar to what I had before for opinion, when I say the food was delicious and there were wonderful staff, the service this service will return main talking points, food and wonderful stuff. We didn't ask for an opinion. We're just getting the main keywords out of it. Another point to keep in note is that for key phrase extraction, it works best when you give large amounts of data to work on. But this is opposite of sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis works better when you give it small amounts of data because it's trying to find sentiment on each row or what the sentiment is, Twitter feeds, which are smaller. So to get the best results from both operations, so you might need to, one of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're developing or creating the solution is you want to consider restructuring the inputs accordingly. So the input for key phrase extraction would be all of it, a data dump, a text dump. Whereas the data that's coming to sentiment might be selected, already filtered, or maybe just very targeted. So that's a thing to keep in mind when you're designing a solution that's using both the key phrase extraction as well as sentiment analysis. The third bucket under text and analytics is named entity recognition. This is also very interesting. I mean, if you look at it, entity recognition, like person name, person type, location, everything that I have on this right-hand side list can actually be extracted from this data, from this text. And then it extracts those relationships. So I'll just read the first line. As dozen of heads of state convened for the annual UN General Assembly in New York this week. Just look at this sentence. What relations are we extracting? We can extract the group size. We know that dozens of people have attended something. Event host. Who's the event host here? UN General Assembly. What's the event site? And the event date. All of this can be extracted using NER. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I had a use case where my customer was getting millions of text documents on a daily basis. And the analysis, the documents would come before 8 a.m. and the analysis would take the whole day for them to kind of understand, lots of people working on it to understand what's in those documents. And those documents were also in different languages. So converting those documents from different languages to English and then doing named entity recognition on it and gathering just the main key points, entities out of it was using machine learning, and Azure Text Analytics Service saved them tremendous amount of time. Personally identifiable information. Another thing that's of concern to our customers is PII information, especially with text analytics for health coming out. Do I hear a question? Okay, no worries. So with NER or entity recognition for PII, it will detect SSN, emails, mobiles, things that are sensitive and that we want to remove. So that's another option that's available now. And I just wanted to show that it gets redacted wherever you have SSN or mobile ID. And this is pretty cool and something that our customers have been asking for a long time. Not going to dive deeper into text analytics for health, but just wanted to put it in here because this shows a combination of multiple things that are happening with entity recognition, linking, relation extraction, negation, all of it happening on this one screen here. I mean, if you look at this one particular case right here, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but you've got the symptom or the sign highlighted in green, and you've got the negation in red. Yeah, not an expert on health data by any means, but just wanted so you guys know that this is something that's available as well. Okay, this is important. I put in these example scenarios. They are available on Microsoft documentation, and they talk about use cases. And again, remember my analogy of Lego blocks and combining those Lego blocks to create something that's productive and that's something useful. This is, for example, on the left side, this shows architecture of a high-level architecture of a survey result analysis tool. So you've got the survey tool pushing your data in, and the data is consumed by sentiment analysis and key phrase extraction to get sentiment. And we also wanted to get the key phrases out of the surveys. So for example, if we have a survey at the end of it, it could be Kiran did an amazing job at presenting natural language services for Azure. So I get positive sentiment, and I also get my name, Kiran, and I get natural language processing out of it, which hopefully Tim will store in a file and create a report out of that everybody can see. Similarly, another example scenario is recording inbound customer calls. So extracting insights from calls like, this is where I wanted to add this because I think this will give an insight of what Veronica was also showing, where you've got a speech coming in or a speech call file coming in that gets converted using Azure Cognitive Services speech to text. And then that text can then be passed through sentiment analysis and key phrase extraction. And then, of course, you can store it, report on it, whatever data you want to collect on it and find insights that can be obtained. But this was interesting. Another thing that's missing in this picture is Lewis. And sometimes even QAMaker. And let's dive deeper into those now. Language understanding or Lewis. Something that sets us apart in the machine learning space, and something that is confusing, believe me, takes certain time for me at least to understand and gather my wits around and see how I can actually use language understanding in for my projects or with my customer engagements. So let's take a step back. What is Lewis? So Lewis is a cloud-based conversational AI service, and it applies to machine learning. So whenever you see conversational AI service that uses natural language text to predict and pull out information, it generally means Lewis. And I'm going to repeat that. Whenever it says conversational natural language text to predict and pull out information, it generally is Lewis. So you can build custom models with Lewis, as Veronica showed us, so you can integrate it with your speech. It can be easily integrated with QAMaker. There are advantages of using, or there are things where you want to use QAMaker versus Lewis, all of that, and I'll touch on it in the next few minutes for sure. There is a very interesting article that talks about creating an enterprise-grade conversational bot. And I will put the link for that in the chat. Please, when you get a chance, take a look at it. It shows the wide gamut of things that can go in supporting bots at the back end and making them what they are, real and more intelligent. Okay. And it's very easy. Lewis is, I know Veronica touched upon it, and I can show it again at the end if we have some time, of how we can use only a few clicks to build our own conversational AI application. And there are a number of quick starts and pre-built domain apps that can be used as well. So you don't have to start from scratch when you're trying to play around with Lewis or understand how it works. Interesting. So these are the three things. If nothing else about Lewis, these are the three things I would really like you guys to take away with you: are utterances, intents, and entities. The intent, even though they're in other order, utterance is what has been in certain words what the user utters. The intent is what is the intent and objective of that sentence. And the entities are very similar to what we pulled out in the entity recognition, is the valuable information that we can take out based on the sentence objective. So very important, because we'll be, and I heard Veronica use these terms as well. We'll keep repeating intents, utterances, and entities. And let me see if I can give you a quick example of that as well, where I can talk about this is an utterance and this is an intent. So for example, it could be an intent could be, I need a plane ticket next Sunday to Rio de Janeiro. And how does that intent represents a task or action, which is expressed in the user's utterance. I know confusing, but I'm going to paste some examples on the side as well that kind of understand and make us see what is an utterance and what is an intent. So when we create an intent, the user's intention is to trigger an action. So you want to do something based on that intent. Um, like, like for example, I want a plane ticket. Okay, for when? Can I give you or point you to a what would you need to be, to get that plane ticket to Rio de Janeiro? So things like that that can be picked up with Lewis. The life cycle. And again, I'll go through this on the demo as well, but it starts with planning, identifying the scenarios that you might use for your application, building. So using an authoring resource to develop the intents and entities. And once you've added defining the intents and entities, you can add training utterances. Like what would you expect somebody to ask? So you can get the intent and entity out of it. And within the Lewis application, it's very easy to test it, improve it, train it, and then as well as publish it. And, you know, and on this bucket right here, the connecting part is where you can connect your Lewis application to broad framework, other cognitive services like speech, and you can also keep on constantly using active learning, refine it and making it better. So that's all I had about Lewis, and I want to jump into QAMaker. Keeping in mind that I want to show you guys how easy it's to create a QAMaker using creating a knowledge base in QAMaker as well as using Lewis. So what is a QAMaker? It's another natural language processing or NLP service, and it allows us to create a natural conversational layer over our data. Aha, interesting. So it is used to find the most appropriate answer. So you have a knowledge base of questions and answers, and you want to find what is the most appropriate answer for an input. That's where QAMaker comes in, questions and answers, a knowledge base consisting of question and answers. Lewis was different. QAMaker is commonly used. Again, it is also used in conversational client applications, just like Lewis. So I'll give you an example, and I should do it later, but I want to do it right now. One of my customers was using QAMaker and wanted to they were like, oh, we have this knowledge base, and there's a question comes in and the answer comes out. That works, but what if the question is not really exactly in the knowledge base? What do we do then? So one of the solutions that worked for them was integrating QAMaker with Lewis. Because that's where when the question is not exactly in the knowledge base or the content of the knowledge base is not that robust, Lewis can help understand the intent from the questions and point it to the right question Q&A pair in the knowledge base for QAMaker. So that was something that's very interesting. And the reason why I bring it up again is because, like I said, I have seen QAMaker work in silo as well on its own very well for customers where they have a very, very robust knowledge base. But whenever there is a knowledge base that requires or there is ambiguity or is not that thick, there is a need to integrate Lewis to make it even more smarter. So we'll go through this as well a little bit and see how easy it is to create your own knowledge base and get started with QAMaker. Just added this here because there is a multi-turn conversation example and how, you have a document, something similar to on the left side, and using QAMaker, you can extract the hierarchy of that page. So for example, the page will give you accounts and signing in. I hope this is clear, by the way. And then you can see use the sign in screen button there. use Windows Hello to sign in or sign out. So this page right here with Multiturn can actually be converted into this on the right side using QAMaker. So in this case, QAMaker will show the follow-up prompts, and then like a guided conversation, user can select whichever option they're interested in. So this is something very neat that you can do with QAMaker as well. Uh-huh. So I touched on this briefly, talking about QAMaker or Lewis, and depending on the scenario, which one to use, when to use, using either or using both together. So that's one of the biggest customers confusion I have seen is how to use QAMaker versus Lewis. So putting it in very simple words, QAMaker should be used only when we are trying to retrieve information from bots. So for informational retrieval bots, if there is static corpus of data and we want the bot to retrieve the best answer, you can still use QAMaker. But if there are workflows that are triggered or action-based tasks or custom workflow that you want to create after understanding user query intent, like the example I was giving you, that the customer was trying to um, relate their support to a QAMaker, but because of the nature of the workflows that would be triggered and the action custom workflows that were needed, they had to integrate Lewis into it as well. I hope this helps, and this is, once you guys leave from this, it'll make a little clearer on when to use QAMaker versus Lewis. Um, Another point to keep in mind is that whenever we are picking up the correct service, we need to make sure or understand the user text that's coming in and what information the customer or the client application needs to get from the cognitive service. So there's an input that's coming in, then there's an output that's going out. So if the chatbot receives a text, how do I get to human resources building on Seattle campus? So the answer might be, okay, look at the chart below to understand how each service works and the text. So giving that intent and trying to find that entity detection and where the data is coming and where it's going, it might be that might be the foundation of what to use, whether there's an integration needed or if needs to be done in a silo. So another thing that I would also talk about is that if you are building a QAMaker knowledge base and you want to combine both the informations, so it makes the request more relevant as the information is kind of confirmed from both the sources of what you're trying to do. So when there's a dynamic task, you want to use something like Lewis or the dynamic data or text that's coming in, whereas with a static information where the question answers don't change much, that knowledge base doesn't change much, then QAMaker is a good place to start from. Okay. Translator. I know Veronica touched upon this a bit, so I will not spend too much time on this because I want to get to the demos before we run out of time. But yeah, translation service is also part of cognitive services family, and it makes it easy to integrate in your application, websites using the API, and it's currently actually available in 90 languages and dialects, and it can be used for text translation with any operating system. So actually, Translator is also used by many Microsoft products and services internally, and it's also used by many businesses worldwide. Um, so speech translation, you guys talked about previously. The part that falls under the language is the text and translation and the document translation. The document translation, it translates documents from any languages, supported languages, while it also preserves the document structure and format. It's highly customizable. So the customization part, it enables translator enterprises, language service providers, um, It's available through any, same, it has the same security, highly scalability, around the version 3 API that's come out. So pretty standard stuff over there for translation. Um, this one, I just added it here because it gives another view of what we were just talking about with language detection, bilingual dictionary, translation, and customization. And you can build neural translation systems that understand specialized terminology with translator. So most of the time you'll see this working in conjunction with other services, for example, like speech, sometimes even sentiment and key phrase, all combined together to get the right insights out. And I will share these slides with you guys, and the deck as well, and the video, of course. So that's what I had ready for presentation. I just want to dive deeper into, or just go through some demos, unless until there's some questions till I get that ready and running. Okay, so Q&A maker. Let's start from scratch. And I just want to quickly show you guys how easy it is to create your own knowledge base. So Q&A maker, this QAMaker.ai is the portal that you can directly log in to start using Q&A maker. There are some quick starts that are available on the Microsoft documentations site, which are super helpful to get started, and get creative around how you can use Q&A Maker and Lewis and the multi-turn conversations that we were just talking about. There are links to documentations from here as well. So I would highly encourage you guys to come and take a look over here.
Hey, Kiran.
Yeah.
We can see your PowerPoint slides, but we can't see what, if you're trying to share something other than your PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you. I was. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, so sorry about that. And thank you for letting me know, Tim. Appreciate it. So yeah, QAMaker.ai, that's what I was trying to go to. And once you come here, this is the page it takes you where you can start managing, creating your own knowledge bases and working through Q&A Maker. You don't have to go to the Azure portal directly from here. I mean, before, but we can start by going to, say, creating a knowledge base right here, and then creating a Q&A service. Once you click here, it'll take you to your subscription where you can create a Q&A service and then start playing around with it. I can do that as well. I'll go to my portal. I've already created a Q&A service, but just to show you, it's pretty regular stuff. It does create app insights and it does use Azure Search. This is interesting to keep in mind, especially from the pricing point, because Azure Search is what's actually indexing your data and using and helping Q&A Maker return valid results. So this is something that normally, it's good for customers and yourself to know when you're trying to create something with Q&A Maker, that Azure Search is being used at the bottom side, at the end of the wheel there. So once you come, you create your Q&A Maker service, and you come back to your to the QAMaker.ai. I can come here and it'll show me the Q&A service that you've just created, or I've just created, which is Q&A demo June. Selected English, just gonna say demo 2. Now this is what's important and interesting, is how do you populate your knowledge base? So knowledge bases generally can be, you can add a URL, PDF documents, documents, I mean, anything that you want, Excel spreadsheets, they can be added. These are the supported formats. But what if you want something that's stored in a Azure blob? There is ways and methods to connect, because it's an API, to connect your knowledge base to something that is being maintained in a certain place and that you just pointed to here. For this example, I'm just going to pick up the Microsoft FAQ, paste it here. It takes a few minutes to load all the data that's in that FAQ to bring it here. And if you you can give your bot actually the ability to have a personality, whether you want it professional, friendly, fitty, you can select that here as well. And once I create my own knowledge base, it's going to take a few minutes. I should not have done that. I already have one created for you guys. Let's hang in there. Because it's going to crawl the content, extract the Q&A pairs, and once we go into our knowledge bases, we can see um, how things look like in my existing knowledge base. So I'm going to go to my knowledge bases. See the second one, the demo 2, it's not published yet because I haven't published it yet, but this one, which I created an hour back, is published and it's existing. So you can have multiple knowledge bases and you can monitor and manage them from here. Once you come in this knowledge base, depending on the data that you have pulled in, I have 27 Q&A pairs. So these are the questions on the left, and these are the answers. So if I want to test it, first of all, before I go to that, you can go to each question here and answer. And either you can add alternative phrasing, like if you expect somebody to ask it in a certain way, you can add that alternative phrasing here. But this can get pretty tedious depending on how much data you have. I would rather team it up with Lewis to get alternative phrasing understood or intent understood. But it's personal preference. You can also add follow-up prompts to each answer, or you can delete questions here, add questions here, question answer pairs. It allows a lot of flexibility that can be happened here. And you can also add links. So if you have certain answers that have links that take them to another site, that's possible through QAMaker as well. So if I want to add a Q&A pair, all I have to do is click on add a question, enter an answer, and that once you save it, it'll start showing in your knowledge base. You can save it and train it. I didn't add anything here, so it's not letting me saving and train, but you can train your model once you've added more knowledge-based questions. I can test it. Let me delete. Okay. Okay, let's test it out. I'm just going to pick up this question. And this is the answer that I got back. And this is the same answer that I have in here. So very simple to get started with knowledge base in a QAMaker, and to start testing it out and seeing how it's working, saving it and training it. And then once you've done that, you can come in here and publish it as well. It's already been published for me, so I'm not going to click again. But yeah, pretty straightforward and pretty easy to get started with it. The reason I want to show you the settings is because you can add multiple knowledge bases. So right here, like I'm going to Microsoft site for getting software download FAQ. I can add multiple sites here that have FAQs and link them all in here and get started quickly. I can also export my knowledge base or import it through different, and I can share it. There's also Postman that we can use to look at the deployment details. We can delete the knowledge base. So multiple things that can be done here on the QAMaker.ai site. Not sure if this is new for you guys or if you've played with it, but just wanted to show it to you guys quickly. I know I'm at almost at time, but I want to show you guys Lewis as well. I know Veronica was showing it briefly, but I just want to show you one that I have running for me. So just like QAMaker.ai, this is Lewis.ai. And I had just brought in, I created a demo yesterday. And when I go in here, I can see intents. So in order to get started with Lewis and to understand the concept of intents, entities, and utterances, I would encourage you to start with pre-built domains, bring it them here, and then you can add a domain. And once you add a domain, it gets added to your assets. And you can see all those intents listed here. So this is where the intents are. The name is, say, query state or home automation turned on, turn off. I want to turn off my lights. So what does that look like? When I click on it, I can see different examples of user input. This is what like turn the overhead light off. And what is the score that I'm getting with it between 0 and 1? So anytime you give an example and hit enter, you'll get some kind of a score and understand what does the intent actually mean. You can also see the entities on the left um, from home automation setting, unit, whatever has been created on that pre-built domain. And you can add your own pre-built entities and domains as well. There's also endpoints that can be generated, that can be used for utterances. So not, and the same thing, you can train it. Right now my app is up to date, test it, and publish it. And all of that can be managed through here. Right now, see, my endpoints are public is off, but I can turn it on and then use this and these endpoints for different integration with different services. So that's the end of my this thing presentation. And if there are any other questions, happy to talk or work with them. Oh,
Excellent
I do
job,
have.
Kiran. And there's a few questions over in the chat. If you want to look at the chat, some are longer questions and some are shorter questions. You might just want to take a look at them quickly and see which ones you want to tackle, or if you want to tackle them. But again, before you go, thank you very much for this awesome session.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. It was a pleasure being here, and always a pleasure talking to the community, connecting. I hope this was of value. More than happy to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. Happy to answer questions, everything. So thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'll pick up some questions from the chat now. And the rest, the longer ones, I'll reply in the chat itself.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope the graveyard session was not that boring.
No, I think I was able to plow through it. I don't know about everybody else, but it looks like we had good attendance for it, and no one was getting drowsy.
Excellent, excellent. Next time when we do it in person, we'll have coffee for sure.
Yes.
But thank you once again, and really appreciative of being here and being able to talk to everyone. Thank you.
You got it. All righty. We'll go ahead and stop the recording. Kiran will probably answer the questions via the chat, and we'll queue up again at 2 o'clock with one Mr. Prashant Boyer.